Hello. A few days ago, I had quite a lot of work to do, but there were a finite amount of things that I had to do for that day. So in the morning, I really focused and worked hard, and by early afternoon, I had completed it all. So I was free to read for the rest of the day, and I was going to continue reading a longer book, but I thought instead, why not read an entire short book all in one go? Because I think there's something really special about that experience of reading an entire story in one big gulp and really enveloping yourself in that world that the author has created. So I picked up the novel Not a River by Selva Almada, which is translated from the Spanish by Annie McDermott. And this novel, it's an Argentinian story, which is only 93 pages long. And at first, I wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy this book, because the description of it, it's about three men that go fishing on an island, and how they come into conflict with the people that live on this island. And I was like, I'm not sure if that's a story for me. And I'd actually started this book a while ago, but just wasn't really in the mood for it. And I didn't have time to read it all in one go like that. But I sat down, started reading this book, and it took me just a little bit to get into it, because there are quite a few characters, and the time shifts backwards and forwards between the present and the past, and the way the narrative is structured. It just took me a little bit to get into it, but once I was hooked on it, I was completely hooked and found it so gripping, following this story, yes, about these three men that go fishing. So there's two older men that I think are in their 50s, and then there's a younger man who I think is in his early 30s. And so they go to this island that they've been to before, and they're fishing. They bring a stingray out of the water. It's this massive creature, and following their story and their interactions and their dialogue with each other, and there's this really sweet section where they just start dancing. They put on some music and they start dancing on the shoreline, and following them as they recall the past. And one of them had kind of haunting memories of an early time where he had continuous nightmares about a drowned man. And there was a tragic incident involving one of their friends. And there are multiple tragedies in this book of violent incidences that occur to a number of characters, some through accidents and some through other violence that occurs. And following their story, there's just this gradual buildup and tension to it, as we see this quite masculine culture and the vulnerability of young women that live on this island, and that interact with these men with each other, but also the continuing danger to these men who are staying on this island and fishing in this area, and who disrupt the environment around them, and the multiple threats to them, or the sinister things which surround them over this period of time leading up to this one big dance. It became so tense following that, and the threats come from both the living and the dead. And there's another woman that has a tendency to vent her anger by setting things on fire. And we follow these characters leading up to this dance, and I was so nervous about what was going to occur, but also absolutely fascinated by the backstory, and this very haunting backstory of some tragedies which occurred in the past, and how they still have kind of a presence in the present time. It is so fascinating how it builds up both this tension and this story and this environment, because there's the whole environment of the island as well, and the forest, the way she evokes the atmosphere of this forest, which is both really wondrous and beautiful, but also has a sinister edge to it. And there's lots of bugs, and it's just a very like dense forested area on this island where it feels like you can become completely lost. And so following the characters as they get lost in this place and struggle to survive in it is so gripping and compelling. And yeah, I just think it's masterfully constructed. The dialogue is presented in a really interesting way, where you have a line of dialogue on one line, and then below it it says who said that thing, and it just has this way of giving like a slight pause in the story to really sink into it and feel the impact of everything that is being exchanged between these characters. And it's also really fascinating reading at the end of the book. There's an afterword by Annie McDermott where she discusses the challenge of translating this novel, where there were a lot of references specific to this particular part of the country and the community, and how to translate that into English. And so did a lot of research to understand and draw upon other literary references, so that the author is obviously influenced by writers like Ernest Hemingway and The Old Man in the Sea, but also has this wonderful sensitivity to the story. So I could really understand the characters' emotions that were going on beneath the surface and beyond this kind of like gruff exterior of these quite like masculine sort of men. And yeah, and I just love the whole pacing of this book, and how it builds up to this conclusion, which I found completely enthralling, and I really loved where this story went, and it's had this kind of haunting effect on me, where I keep thinking about it and thinking about scenes of it from it and characters from it over the past few days. And so yeah, what a fascinating book. And I was really fascinated to learn too at the end that this is the third book in a kind of thematic trilogy of novels. And so I'll be really interested to explore those earlier novels as well. But I'd love to hear if you have read this book and what you think about it, or if you're interested in reading it now, or if you read any more of Selva Almada's books. I'd love to hear about that in the comments below. Or are there any other short books that you read all in one go and feel that it was an even more impactful experience for having consumed it in that way? Please let me know about that. But I hope you're doing well and finding time to read some good things. And if you can find the time to read a short novel like this all in one go, then yeah, it's really worth that experience. But I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.